probably the hardest part is, all right, my kid is off course. How do what are some disciplines and stuff for that, right? And what I would like to do this week is take a look at what is it that we're doing as fathers, not just a discipline, but how do we instill the principles and values? Because I think it comes from both sides, right? There's the stick that teaches us, but how do we do it on the other side where, like, they're not reacting because they know there's poor outcomes, but they're just genuinely inspired to do what they're supposed to do? You know what I mean? What's your thoughts on that? Don't worry, I'll just wait.
I was doing my extroverted thing where I try to let everybody speak first. My guess is Clint's doing the same thing, but who knows? All right, so for me, I would say that leading from the front, it like the actually giving them something to look up to see you do, to go through struggle. Like the kids working out with me, I've seen does more than I think it does. It kind of teaches them a little bit of some pain and some struggle with me, and it's not something that I've like tried to make happen because schedules are busy or whatever. But in the last 2 weeks, giving them something that they can do with me, something that they kind of have to listen through, something that I have to teach them, and then they have to follow the instruction, even though it's not super like detrimental to them. Like they have to stop, listen, follow the instruction, make it through something hard. I've seen that just going through the workout together with them has made an entire difference on their countenance when we're not working out.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me ask you guys this. What do you think when it comes to your kids is probably the most important part for instilling a set of values that they operate off of? What's the what's your individual kind of thoughts and take on that?
Man, I would say, uh, just from just from being able to see you, Jordan, like consistency has been a big thing that I've tried to work on because it's easy for me to go in spurts of like, oh, this is cool or this is working, but
Hmm.
I found like no matter what I do, unless I'm consistent, everything will fade. So I think for me, just trying to keep consistent, whether it be just a little bit at a time, or whether you forget or fail something, just trying to get back to consistency. That's a big
Yeah,
one.
man. And I tell you what, let me throw a little grace on the thought of consistency because I think this is one of the things that Satan's really good at is no matter who you are, it's hard to like over and over and over again hit your exact values and principles, right? Like you're gonna come short, and I think that that's one of his key ways to basically make us feel inadequate because all he has to do is find whatever your strengths are. Most people think Satan attacks your weaknesses, but
Mhm.
really he attacks your strengths. And we see
Mhm.
that in Christ, right? Like he doesn't show up and say you're not able to do this and this. He's like, can you really accomplish these strengths? Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
so a lot of times what happens is, like for me, I know that guys have different kind of impacts and leadership potential and stuff, but I know for me that I have a high level of courage and I'm willing to take a group of men and take care of them and instill an outcome that will be successful. So for me, the best way to like mess with that is to get my wife upset enough with me or whatever that she doesn't trust what I'm saying in the moment or whatever, right? Like, so it's like, let me get his strongest strength and try to turn that to uh, where it's not an effective outcome. You know what I mean? So it's like the Air Force, if you pull out controllers, PJs, TAC P, that's probably it. But you pull those out, you don't have like a ground force that is effective. That's not its strength. You know what I mean? So its strength is the ability to drop bombs. So you don't try to like hit them on the side of being like, you guys don't have a ground force because it's like, yeah, it's called the Air Force, right? So instead what you want to do is you want to disarm the munitions they have. You want to beat up the strengths they have so they won't use their strengths. And so all that to say full circle is that I think consistency in our belief that like we are going to live out our principles and values with a level that men of high standard will think is adequate can be a dangerous space because we all come up short. You know what I mean? So the way I would say consistency, and I do agree, is I would say to consistently reevaluate, right? And so this is what I've always tried to do with our kids, and it's what I try to do with myself and men is, am I consistently evaluating the reality in front of me? Like, did I hit the metrics I wanted? And I got to ask these questions. Am I doing what I think I should do? This week wasn't quite where I think I should. What can I do forward? Right. Or, yes, I did. Okay, perfect. What do I want to increase and what do I want to adjust and what do I want to decrease? Like consistently reevaluating. And that is, by the way, perfect transition, what I do with the kids. I consistently evaluate what, you know, does anybody remember what Jesus says about pruning, right? Pruning the vine. What does he say? Does anybody remember? Because he opens and says, all who abide in me, I abide in you. I am the true vine. The Father is the vine dresser. And then what does he say about how he interacts with that vine? What you got, Clint? Run that, dog.
I was gonna say a lot of that it's all good and it's all right and it's perfect, but that's almost uh, graduate level type thought process. And
Yep, yep.
depending on where you're at with your kids, what makes that effective is if you start with a desired outcome, right?
That's right.
Pruning the vine and all that other kind of stuff is, you know what you want that tree to be at the end. So you do things that align with that, right?
That's right.
So with your kids, all of that comes into play if you start with what you want your kids to look like when they're 20 years old.
Bingo. That's right.
And so too many people miss that basic step. They just
That's
start doing and they don't know where they're going or where they want their kids to end up. So you have to start with that because then your actions, um, you have something to evaluate, right? If you don't have a destination, you don't know where the hell you're going. So how can you evaluate that? So start with what you want the end product to be, and then those actions start to make a lot more sense.
100%. And I'll hit that piece succinctly, which is I have told my son this. There's a central desire that I have, which is when I'm interacting with him and pruning or watering, I tell him the same thing. I am not trying to raise you to be a good boy. I'm trying to raise you to be an exceptional man. And these are some of those principles. And that's what's in my mind. But to the point of pruning or not, how fast does a vine grow, right? Like, I mean, sure, it's a little bit quicker than a tree and everything else, but it's something that you can reevaluate and observe. It's something that you're regularly taking a look at and you're cutting away what's not there and you're adding what is because, as Clint said, you know the outcome that you're shooting for, right? But I think Jesus's words are still just better than mine. So, what is he pruning? What does he say there? Somebody go to John 14, I think. Should be pretty high in the chapter.
It's the beginning of 15.
15. Yeah, what do we got?
He says he cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit, and he prunes the branches that do bear fruit so that they will produce even more fruit. You've
All
been
right,
pruned
perfect.
and purified.
That's it. So he cuts off what is not, and then he says it like it's not the same thing, but he also cuts off what is holding back, right? So he removes the principles that are not. So if we put that into like caveman terms, what does it mean to prune in order for a better growth? Because I think the first one is discipline, right? This is like removing what shouldn't be. But when we're also cutting, pruning, grow better fruit, what does that look like as a father?
It's kind of like you said, a refining process to where we have an evaluation to see where we currently are and where we where are we succeeding and where do we need improvement. So to me, that would be something that obviously from your own standpoint you can see where you're going, but I think it's also helpful to kind of get feedback from the kids and see how are things going, just so you can kind of have another litmus test to see where you're at.
Yep. And so, how do we, what is the of pruning? All right, let me put it like this. So, I grew up in Atlanta till I was 11 with everybody that doesn't look like me and a lot of challenges to go with that. That natural environment helped create me because of the situation. But my kids didn't grow up in the hood. So, how do I get them the same level of fortitude? How do I get them the same level of like, I don't care what you say, right? What's that look like as a father? Because let's go back with Clint's original thought. We don't want our kids to be astronauts, or we don't want our kids to be carpenters, or we don't want our kids to be attorneys or special operators. We want our kids to have the character that will excel in that position, honoring God for whatever the interest may be, right? That's the ultimate outcome, is like a man who is a lamp pulled out from a lampstand, there to shine light to the world in what God looks like. That's the goal. So, how do we get a child that doesn't have necessarily the same struggles that we had environmentally growing up to get to that point? And that is the pruning. So, what does that look like?
You have to create it somehow organically.
Bingo. That is my exact thought process and always has been. And what does that mean? It means that I am going to look to create stress on my kids. I'm going to find challenges that are not comfortable, right? And sometimes that's just people do that with chores. Sometimes it's you're signing them up for something. Sometimes you're putting them where they might think they're in over their head, but it's just enough. And sometimes, and this is very freaking important, it took me a long time for my wife to like fully understand this, but I'm okay with failure. Like you go to a tournament or whatever, and people always want their kids to win. I don't care. I know that sounds weird, but I want them to grow. And if God's plan is a failure, then it's a failure. But how do I interact so that their takeaway is not a life afraid of failure, but a life that embodies I will take on challenge? Does that make sense? Is that tracking? So, what's a couple like simple examples? Like, your kids are younger, Alex. Today's the day. If your mindset is, I want to have a great day and I want the kids to have a great day, you probably won't be able to reevaluate the same way. So instead of like, I want the kids to have a great day, I want the kids to grow. And that might be in terms of a great day. It might be in terms of within the great day, I naturally create challenges. And I do this a lot. And I don't have to do it as much now with my son because I did it so much when he was little. Right. So when he was little, I just like put him on something that I knew scared the shit out of him. I'd be like, here, I'm going to stack him up where I'm sitting him on these stairs. At HQ, we used to have those stairs that walked up the side upstairs. You remember those deaf stairs we had, Bill, that walked upstairs? I would just like put him halfway up, like right past even where my arm's reach was when he was little. And I'd be like, hey, jump down here. And in his mind, he's like, hell no, that's crazy. Right. So a kid has a fear. He doesn't want to jump down. All right, there's the challenge. So, what do you do in those moments to help him jump down? What do you guys think?
I feel like I'm just learning all of this. So my instinctive response would be to like let him know, like, come on, you can jump. If you fall, I'm here.
Mm-hmm. This is what most of us as men do. And this is generally what I start with. If he's an adult man, is God going to ask him to do stuff that he doesn't believe is a good idea? In my
No.
experience, exactly what he does, right? So I'm going to go, hey, I got you. And God will go, hey, I got you. But that's not going to remove the fear. So unfortunately, you have to go to plan B. What do you think plan B looks like? Go ahead, Clint.
You make them.
You make them.
You
That's
make
right.
them, and
You
you
make
can't
them.
you can't back down. You have to show as much confidence or more than they're about to show. So
That's and this is gonna like, to you guys, you get it. You understand my character. But if I say this to an average person, they're just gonna think I'm a lunatic. I'm gonna create a fear that's more fearful than the fear they have to jump, right? And that fear, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna beat your ass or something. Probably not. I might have as a young dad, but
I have.
I'm gonna be like, hey, here's the deal. You're gonna jump down before we leave here. And the longer you wait, the worse the outcome's gonna be. So you go ahead and jump down, you're good. If you don't, then we're not doing this, we're not doing this and this and this, and outcome's gonna happen. And they don't want that. But here is my absolute answer. God says the same thing. If you walk with me, you honor what I'm asking you, then a workman's worth his wage. I'm gonna bless you. And if you don't, there will be curses. Same. It is both the love and fear of God that keeps sin at bay, right? I don't want a little boy to grow up into a man that can only tackle challenges by overcoming fear. I want a young man to understand that every decision has a marginal gain and an opportunity cost. And if you don't do what you should do, there is an opportunity cost. That's just how it is. And so I knew that my outcome was I wanted a kid that when he saw fear, he was used to regularly overcoming that because he would eventually understand that inaction creates worse outcomes. That's the principle I needed him to understand. And so, and by the way, probably the smarter your kid is and the more logical he is as a little kid, the more fearful he's going to be on stuff. At least that's my experience. With Slade, I'd be like, jump down. And early, young, he like, his mind is like, I think I might break my leg. You don't say that, but that's the response. And if they can see future bad outcomes, then it often creates a fear to act because it's like, what if I'm wrong? What if dad doesn't catch me? Right. And so I would just do exactly that. I create challenges that goes, you're going to have to do this, dude, because if not, there's this when he was little. And that seems a little fucked up to other people, but did I tell him he wouldn't get hurt? I did. And when he then decided to choose blessings over curses, I'm not doing that, Bill. I don't know who is. I see it pop up. If you click on settings, Bill, somebody keeps knocking Bill's audio out. This was happening to me last week. I knocked my own audio out somehow. Oh, are you on your phone right now, Bill? Are you clicking off of the screen or app for to like pull reference stuff? Whenever I was pulling up on my phone, it would do that. But if you click on settings, you can click on your name and put allow audio. So when he was little, I needed him to understand if I said you're going to be okay, in spite of the fear, you're going to be okay because that's what God says. And so I made him every single time I saw something that I knew was scary, but he would be okay. I made him face it every single time. I'd be like, you gonna jump down? No. Or this is, oh, I think I forgot to hit record. Oh, no, we're good. All right. So this is recorded, so it is what it is. But I remember like a 4th of July, he was like 10, and we had like the little fireworks you light, and they're just like shooting up a blaze. And I was like, hey, man, go jump over that. And he was like, huh? I was like, go jump over that. He's like barefoot, by the way. And I'm like, he's like, huh? I'm like, hey, go jump over that. And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, instantly, I'm like, hey, man, if you don't jump over that, XYZ. And he's like, so he goes and he jumps over it. And I just continually made him face fear because to me, the most important principle I can teach my son and daughter is to face fear. Like whatever they want in life, they won't do what they're supposed to do if fear is what controls them. If you ask them a question and their default is to lie to you, they're lying out of fear. If they see an opportunity they should take and they won't, it's because they're afraid. That is the answer to every poor action. If somebody's being ultra selfish and you're like, well, selfish is different. It's not. It's coming from a belief that if I don't act this way, then it's going to turn out poorly for me. It's all rooted in fear, every bit of it. Every good decision is based upon faith, a promise, but part of faith is understanding that if I don't do what I'm asked, there will be a poor outcome. That's a fact. For me, I am afraid, but I'm really only afraid of one thing, and that is not doing what God asked me to do. Because outside of that, I don't care. You know, Joseph has a dream and realizes Mary is pregnant with the Holy Spirit there. That's not a normal thing to hear, right? You're Joseph. You're like, I don't know about that. You went to Nazareth in order. I'm sorry. You went to Bethlehem to have the child. You get to Bethlehem. Well, how does God says go to Egypt, right? But what else does God say? He tells them take Mary and Joseph and go to Egypt. What else does he say? Who remembers? Should be in Matthew 1 or 2.
Does he tell him not to be afraid? Or no?
Well,
I think it's something else.
somebody pull it up. Matthew 1 or 2. What is it? He says go to Egypt and tells him what's going to happen if he doesn't. He doesn't say it like that, but that is what he's saying. I think it's Matthew 1 or 2. Bill, help me out. Yep, Bill's up. Bill's muted. Let's see if I can unmute Bill. I'm going to let you back in the party, Bill. Hold on. Let's go, people. All right, Bill, you're back.
Germany, they'll have. There you go. You must remind me the question.
I said, when Joseph is told by Gabriel to go to Egypt, what else does he say?
There, I found it. He says, "Stay there until I tell you,
Return.
for Herod is going to search for the child and kill him."
Okay, that's pitting fear, right? Go to
Yeah.
Egypt. If you don't think that a man who is with his wife, who just had a child that's not his child, and he goes, go to Egypt, and then Joseph's like, that sounds great. No, he goes, go, or that kid's dead, you're dead. That's what he says. And so he goes to Egypt. And then when he takes his wife to Egypt, Mary's like, okay, we're going to Egypt. Well, then while he's in Egypt, he gets told, go back. And when he says go back, he also tells them where to not go. He gives them a secondary outcome that will be bad. He goes, go back, but go to Nazareth because Herod's son is still ruling over Judea. I think that's how he says it. You guys seeing that?
Yep. And it does say Herod was furious when he realized it, and then he sent him
Mm-hmm.
to kill the
Yeah.
boys. And he kills who knows how many kids, probably
Yeah.
hundreds, maybe thousands of children under 2.
2,000.
Yeah.
And the voice of Rachel is then cited, and it says that, calling out to the tears of Bethlehem,
Yep.
right? So it's same. God creates a father. He makes in Jesus's adopted father challenge. God could have just prevented Herod from doing what he's doing. He could
Or
have
he killed.
just he could have just made Joseph's day fun and easy, but he forces challenge on Joseph because he's entrusting Joseph to raise his son. That's a big deal. Like, you think Jesus turns out with the character he has without Joseph? I know what, like, most Christians would say. They're like, oh, it's Jesus. It's like, my guy. It says that in Luke, after he goes down the temple and he comes back, it says he continued to grow in both stature and wisdom before God and men. That means his character, Jesus's character, is growing in wisdom. Wisdom is not knowledge. Wisdom is the byproduct of knowledge applied to challenges and lessons learned. And now you know things that you wouldn't know unless you went through experience of challenge. Is that tracking? Is that making sense? So if I want my kid to have a good day, that's fine. But I'm also going to put a lot of challenges in their way as frequent as possible. And it's real simple. I'm not going to tell my kid, if you jump down, we're going to go play a video game or we're going to have fun or whatever. I'm going to simply tell him to jump down when he's young. When he gets older, I might change that calculus. But when he's little, I'm like, hey, jump down. And he'd be like, no. I'm like, all right, jump down. And if you do, here's a blessing. And he'd be like, ah. And I'm like, all right, if you don't jump down, here's your outcome. This is what's going to happen. But I'm going to tell you this, we're not leaving here today until you do. And if I have to force it, this is your outcome. Then when he jumps down, I will probably proceed straight to the blessing piece because that's the principle I want him to understand. God gives you a challenge. You're afraid. He tells you what the bad outcome is. But if you do what he says, a workman's worth his wage. Right? Like, people have a problem with prosperity gospel preaching, and I do too. But I don't have a problem with the principle in that you will receive blessings for the wages that God gives you. It might not be until the next life, but you will receive reward for walking with God. And I can show you in the Bible in multiple occasions where that's true. It
Well,
just Go ahead, Bill.
just the entire scripture talks about blessings and curses, period. And I think, with our kids, you have to train obedience first. They have to be afraid to do stuff, and they have to be kind of more afraid of your outcome with them than
That's
what
right.
they're afraid of. And if you can do that, you train them that even though you're afraid, you freaking lean in. That's what you do. That's what people have to do. Then you start working on motives. But you can't start with motives first, because the fear, people are more likely to move away from pain than they are to pleasure. So you have to teach them to lean into pain so that later you can teach them that, hey, long term, pleasure is going to drive you the most, but not pleasure, but, success or fulfillment, those things. But pain is, you got to learn that when you're afraid, you just got to lean in.
That's right.
And
And
that
what
God's doing that with us all the time.
100%. And what I took in this exact process and brought on Plain with Slade was when you were little, and I would tell you, I need you to do A, and if you don't, then B is going to happen. Do you know why that was so important to teach you that? And I would go and I would ask him questions just like I'm asking now. I'm going to tell him the answer, but I'm going to ask him so it sticks. If you just tell him, it doesn't always stick, but I'm going to ask him a question he doesn't know the answer to. So he's like, because of this. And I'm like, it's a good assessment. Maybe, maybe not. Here's the reason I said that. And it's because the real principle is, as a man, you're always going to be somewhat afraid to do the right thing. But if you don't, then God's promise on the other side is that the promise of not honoring God is a blessing you don't want. When you read what Jacob blesses his children in Genesis, it's my favorite thing to read on blessings. If you go read those, two of them sound awesome. The rest sound crap. Judah and Benjamin, it's like, all right, that's pretty cool. The other ones, I don't want those blessings. But it says that Jacob blessed them according to who they were, right? So it's like everybody wants some kind of peace and favorable outcome in life. The only way to get there is through challenge. And that's the principle that pruning has. I'm going to prune, but I don't have to know, as Clint said, very perfect. I don't have to know every step that's going to create a faithful man that can conquer fear or a faithful daughter that can conquer fear, especially for a daughter, because she's going to have to follow the lead of a man as opposed to the lead of God. That's hard. So I don't have to know every step. I just have to reevaluate constantly as I'm looking at this vine growing. Is that something I'm cutting off with discipline? Or is this something now I see an opportunity for challenge to let it produce more fruit? Thoughts? What you guys got?
I have a couple things if you don't mind.
Please.
Just kind of fine tune what you're saying.
Yeah.
The especially because in our society, I'll just front it with this. In our society today, we regularly accept people talking to pets like they're humans and like they can reason.
Right.
And we have to remember that when kids are little, they are not actually reasoning creatures. They are cause and effect. And that's where the discipline part comes in. So when you are evaluating, each kid is a little bit different, right? But consider the age. If you're teaching a 2-year old to jump to you, and then you ask them if they know why they did that,
Mm.
they might give you an answer. A 5-year old might give you an answer, but be cognizant of this is where you have to be an active parent and don't just accept, but think about what they said and see if it's something that they're actually reasoning through or if it's just a cause and effect. Like they're mimicking you, copying you. If they're
Mm.
copying you, that's great. It's fine. But just understand that they might still not completely understand. So you can't stop doing what you're doing. You have to maintain that consistency. And that if you have you know, a hang on, my brain's running 10 times faster than my mouth.
Now
Um,
let me comment on something real quick, Clint, and
yeah,
then
go ahead.
to be honest, when he was little, like to Clint's point, I'm trying to, as Bill said to me more than once, I'm trying to let him catch principles, not let me teach him principles. So the real thing that I would do 99% of the time is jump down to me. No, if you don't, here's the outcome. Also, we're not leaving here till you do. Then when he does that, unbeknownst to him, I give him a blessing. I take him and he gets a blessing, and I don't have to teach it. He learns facing fears is a better outcome, and it's not just the avoidance of the bad, right? I did this. Whoa, I got something unexpected from this. And that is walking with God. Like right now, in my own interesting situation, I don't know. Like God's not saying, here's a promise. If you do this thing and be a good character, I'm going to give you $100. I don't know. But I do know that there, because he's taught me this by taking me through challenges, I caught this. There's two choices. One is the righteous and one is not. I'll choose the righteous. It's going to have pain and suffering, but I'm going to do it for two reasons. One, I don't want the outcome of not doing what he says. And two, there's a principle of blessing that's always there. And that's what I want him to catch. And as he gets older, and I'll say this after Clint, he gets older, I'll adjust reasoning behind certain things. And I'll give you that example. Go ahead, Clint.
Oh no, that's pretty much what I was getting at. It's just that we tend to our kids are very very intelligent, very smart, right?
Go.
And so they learn real quick how to say things in order to stop other things from happening,
Huh?
and that's what we have to watch out for, and uh, we have to be smarter because I mean they are highly intelligent little creatures, and so you have to be
Play the.
cognizant of that that they're going to find a way to get out of it, right? And
Yep.
so you have to stay consistent with that, and you have to adjust your the same way God does. You have to adjust your presentation, your posture, based on what they're presenting back.
Yep. I
When
think. Go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say, it's good to remember that you're doing this continually. Where the, no, you're eating the food put in front of you. No, you're going to put on the blue shorts, not the red shorts. They don't have to understand why. They just need to know, and you can't give in. It's like, hey, trust me, I'm in charge. If you don't trust me, pain and suffering. If you trust me, life is great. And they eventually kind of start to figure out. And if you're consistent, like, hey, I said to do this, but if then you let them do it, you're creating insecurity because every time they push on you and you move your standard, the standard's not important. It's that they want them to trust you. That when I say yes, it means a yes. And when I say no, it means a no. And if they can trust you in little things like, okay, I got to wear the blue shorts, not the red shorts, later, especially if you fix that in early, then in the teen years, like, hey, trust me, do not do this. There will be pain and suffering if you do this. Then your kids come up to you like, hey, dad, so don't say no. Before we can ask you something, but don't say no. But you have to train yourself to be consistent in every area of life, and it kind of sucks.
Yep. I think one of the best characteristics somebody can have is massive stubbornness.
Yeah.
Right? And what I mean by that is, I know my entire family, wife included, on more than one occasion, on more than I can count, thinks I'm doing the wrong thing as a father, like a lot, because they don't understand that the stress I'm putting on them is what will make them capable of handling stress later. And so as they get a little older, and honestly, I think you could tell them this as soon as they can conceptualize this. This is something that I did not invent. It's something I heard another man say, and he was spot on. And I've done this with my own son. Like, and I don't do this before the outcome. Once he's done what he's supposed to do, or I've had to put tension on him and stress, like in a way, like we were wrestling probably like 3 weeks ago and doing something, and I was pressuring him hard, like in when we were rolling, like I was putting serious tension on him as we were moving, and I'm generally like pretty, all right, hey man, why are you doing that or doing this? I was like, every time he was making the same mistake, I was punishing him in our interaction to like instill, when you do that, this is what happens. And I was pushing him hard, right? And he's big enough that he can take a legit beating. I mean, I'm not obviously using my full capacity, I'm too big and too strong, but I'm putting more than what he's going to find in his weight class for some time, right? So I'm hard. And I can tell he's like, damn, that was rough. And afterwards, I sat there and I said, hey, let me ask you a question, son. Do you believe that I love you unconditionally? Like that I have absolute love for you? And he said, yeah, of course. Right. And I said, do you believe that as your father with that love, that even if you don't understand, that the things I do is because I love you and want to see the best outcomes for you in your life. And he said, yes. And I said, then I'm going to remind you, you're not going to understand why I do certain things and you're not going to like it, but it's because I love you unconditionally and I want what's best for you. And that's going to be painful sometimes, son, but it is out of love because I don't want him to take away that dad is mean or pressure or whatever, because I need him to have love and an understanding that there's going to come challenge from that. So I do. The reasoning I give him is not, well, if you do it like this and that's going to, it's like, all he needs to understand for a long time is I love you and I want what's best for you. Because as Jesus, sorry, as God, sorry, as Paul says in Romans of God, that his wisdom is unknowable and his ways are unsearchable. The same thing is true for you as a father with your kids. They cannot know the wisdom you have for them, and they will not understand the way that you have for them until they continue to mature in how they think, right? And so I personally put lots of challenges on my kid, and sometimes, is Cam on here? Oh, he missed it. So Cam and
Yeah.
I were played, and he'd been with us. Cam was with Slade and I for like 4 days. On like one of the last days, Slade's real intelligent. So I was like, we were on this other side of this valley hunting pheasant, and it was like crazy windy. And I was like, I pointed at him and I was like, hey, scoot up, because we were going to basically, Ethan was walking down to the bottom of this thing with the dog, fleshing him out on two sides of the valley. But based upon where the wind was at, I was telling him to press up. And so he had heard from Ethan before where he was like, all right, hey, kind of stay right here or whatever. But I can see Ethan and I'm talking to Ethan from the top. He can't see Ethan. And he's like, he's thinking the same thing as me. And I like point at Slade. We're kind of talking. I'm like, up. And he's like, yeah. So I point at Slade and I'm like, hey, go up. And he's like, kind of just barely going that way. And I know he's like trying to appease me. But in his own brain, he's like, yeah, but Ethan said. He's not saying that to me, but I can tell that's what's happening in his mind. You know, enough proximity with your kids, and I we were going, and then finally it's on their side. I go, hey, look, motherfucker, get up there like 50 meters from now. And he's like, oh, all right. So he runs up there. We get done. Cam goes, hey man, how often do you have to do that? And I go, not that often, but here's why I'm fine with it. It's not my regular practice, but here's why I'm fine with it. If I don't create in him a tempering to uncomfort like that, then what happens when he goes to PJ selection? What happens when he goes to whatever and somebody says something or interacts with him in a way that hurts his feelings, and he's not used to that of some nature. So it's like I sometimes will be more aggressive with my kids than somebody else, but I'm not actually mad. I learned this from a team sergeant I had when I was 20 years old. He goes, I was close to him, and he goes, here's my principle. I'm never actually mad, but sometimes I need them to think I am, right? And that's the same thing. Is I'm not actually pissed. I'm like, hey, listen, motherfucker, get up there. And I'm not actually mad. Like I turned to Cam and I like he's on the side. I just start laughing, and I think he thought I was mad. So I go, I'm not mad. I just want him to think I'm mad. He gets up there, and we come up to the top, and I was like, hey, dude, what was going on there? Help me understand. I'm telling you to scoot up. I tell you to double time, go up there. And he goes, honestly, I didn't know what you were saying, like to hurry up. And I was like, my perception is that you were thinking what Ethan told you and didn't want to do something wrong because we're hunting and there's guns. And he goes, no, I that might have been my first thought, but you told me 3 times after that to do something, and I didn't understand what you're saying. And I go, okay, that's fair. What do you think that looks like in life if somebody's telling you something 3 times, you're doing the exact same thing, right? Like I said something, then no change. I said something, no change. Like, what do you think that looks like when you're interacting with other men in other situations in man world? And he's like, no, I understand. And I was like, look, if you don't understand what I'm saying, then the onus is on you to go, what do you mean? Like, just break the rules. We're trying to be quiet, but are you telling me to run up? And I go, yeah, run up there. But if I say something once and you don't understand, and then I say it again, you don't understand, and a third time you don't understand, now as a man in man world, a man's going to be like, that guy's a fucking idiot. This is what I tell him. Because I've told this guy 3 times and he's doing the exact same thing. So these are the things, like, as he gets older, I'm still getting in his ass and progressing, but I'm going to help him understand why it is that I'm saying what I'm saying. Because in man world, this is what I tell him. In grown man world, if you know, Bill's like, "Hey man, can you change that out on the website?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay." And then he has to ask me 3 more times. He's either going to think I don't care, I'm blowing him off, or I'm an idiot. So that's man world, and that's as he continues to progress. At first I got to teach him to face fear. Then I got to teach him what happens in man world when you're interacting in a certain way. If you want to have impact in man world, you have to understand what are apex man rules. And for my daughter, quite often I say a lot, this is something I tell her. I go, hey, you need to make sure that the man you select is one you're willing to fucking listen to. Because if you don't, it's going to be a very painful life. I know you're a strong female. I know he's going to have to be a strong man, but the way you listen to me, you better start getting your mindset towards, I need to figure out how to empower and build this guy up, because there's no scenario in adult world where you have a successful relationship and can't face your fears when you don't believe it's the best answer, right? Thoughts? What do you guys got? Clint, I can imagine you've had to chew Cody and Cade's butt more than once in a hostile manner.
A couple times, maybe once or twice. Um, I would just say what one thing to follow on with all of this is as you're practicing this, right? I take this as application and something to go practice, right? Remember that it if you haven't been doing this or if you haven't been thinking this way and you're going to start trying it, dude, remember it's going to be like the first time you ever had sex. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be weird. You're not going to do it right. So, but you're going to keep doing it, right? So keep doing it. And then the other thing is that remember that these kids, boys and girls, they both require the same lessons, a lot of times vastly different techniques, and you need to understand that and do that. And then after you're doing this and the kids are growing and the kids are getting older, remember they are still very raw men and women. And so they require the same things you do. What I want from my wife more than anything in the world is acknowledgement of doing a good job.
That's right.
And so if you see your boys doing something without your prompting, it doesn't have to be elaborate. It just has to be an acknowledgement that you did a good job and I'm proud of you. And that instills a lot of times 10 times more than the punishment does or the harsh reality. And the same with your daughters, right? If your daughters are doing something, be active in their life enough to recognize that they're doing that and give them the love, give them that hug and say, I felt so loved when you did that for me. And when you did that, that was just amazing. And so that is the other form of reinforcement. But that's not the base, right? That is the after you've gone through the training and they're doing that kind of stuff. That is just as important though.
Yeah. Listen, 2 thoughts on that. Everybody write this down. Bringing out the best in people. Bringing out the best in people. I don't remember the author. I'll try to look it up right after this. I think it's something Daniels. I read this book probably 15 years ago. And it talks about the 4 types of operant conditioning, as Clint's saying here. But if you want to train dogs, because dogs and kids have very similar learning patterns, so God seems to have built a program in dogs that operates well off of humans. But the best and fastest and easiest way to train a dog to do something is when you reward the dog's own behavior, exactly like Clint just said. And so, like, people want to teach their dog to sit, so they like do the little treat thing and they lift it up or they push their butt down, all that. You're making the dog do a behavior. It's never going to adopt it as fast as if I have treats ready. I'm just doing day. And the second he sits down without me telling him, I mark it and he gets a treat because he's like, oh, that's my move. That's my idea. I like that. And when I bless the things that he does naturally, then I mark it. I make him aware that was awesome. And then I can put a name to it with the dog. But I do the same thing with a kid. And so, to Clint's point, and this is really in the final minutes, I was going to say all the stuff we talked about before this is the hardest stuff to do, but it's not the most impact. The most impact is loving your kids and encouraging them so regularly that when I'm challenging or when I'm pruning or cutting off, I'm disciplining or giving them challenges, they already know I love them. I don't have to say I love you. They know because of the love and interaction. Like with my son now, because I stayed so consistent with him, 99.9% of the time, I don't have to do anything that's challenging or discipline. I don't. I actually, it kind of blows my mind. It's like, it's awesome. I'm so stoked with who he is because I did it regularly enough. And once I saw him capture the principle of tackling fear, then I almost exclusively only had to watch out for discipline and maintain a high level of love and encouragement because now he chooses challenge. He wants to sign up for a tournament. He wants to go to the gym. He wants to challenge himself because he's not afraid of challenge and failure. But the principle is built upon if they don't listen, this is why Jesus says, all who believeth are saved. The first principle is love, period. After you're walking with Christ, the next principle is now challenge yourself to stay in the will that I'm giving you. But the first principle is love. Same thing for your wife. If your wife knows that you're trying to create the best outcome for her and that involves frustrating her and all this stuff at times, if she doesn't think that you love her like unconditionally, then it's just for you while you're saying it. That's the perception. So I try to, like, for instance, Slade will go today. If he makes a mistake, you know what? Let me just say this. A father that last week after I talked to y'all, one of the dads here who he loves his son, man. He's a good dad. He sees the way Slade is when he comes off the mat, win, lose, or draw. He sees the way Slade fights, all these things. He's encouraged by it. He comes over to me afterwards in the parking lot. Halfway through the tournament, I went out to recharge my phone. And he goes, hey, it's apparent who Slade is. I'm trying to help my son Noah in some of the same ways. I can tell like he's a little he's worried about making mistakes. Like he doesn't quite have the confidence going into a match that I can clearly see in Slade. What's your advice for me? That's what he asked me. And it's kind of humbling. I'm like, well, what are you doing now? And he's like, I tell him, it's like, man, you're doing good. You got to listen to your coaches and you got to this and you got that and you got this. And I go, okay, well, do you think that that sounds like you're proud of his efforts? Or if only you did these things, I would be proud of your efforts? And he just stopped and he's like, oh. And I go, let me tell you something I told Slade. And I tell him this before every tournament. I tell him this often before matches. I go, hey, I want you to know something. I'm proud of you already. And the reason I'm proud of you is I know the work you've put in, and I know that you're going to go out and fight without fear. I'm proud of you already. And if my approval means something to you, which I know it does because I know you, I already approve. I'm already proud, which means you have nothing to prove except to go out and do what you believe you should be doing in the moment. And when it's done, who cares if I'm proud of you? I want you to be proud of you. So go, have fun. And if you make mistakes, we'll learn. And if you do things right, awesome. I'm already proud of you. I love you. Let's go to work. And so, and then often I do some other encouragement, like right before he's getting ready to go, I'll be like, hey, real quick, who's a bad motherfucker? And he'd be like, I'm a bad motherfucker. I'm like, go be a bad motherfucker then. Right. And he goes out to go be a bad motherfucker because identity matters. When he comes off the match, I don't go like, oh man, you should have done this, should have done. I'd be like, dude, did you see what happened when you freaking shot that underhook or whatever? He's like, yeah. I'm like, dude. So the other thing caught you a little bit, but and we can make an adjustment on that. I can't believe how well that worked. I want to talk about the things that he did that was progression, and then I want to give him tools to continue to progress. I don't care if he loses a match, and when he wins, either way, I don't think right after their own behavior and best effort is the time to say, if only you would have. So I'm going to encourage, like Clint said, the point in which I am doing it different is when he doesn't want to take on the challenge out of fear. When he takes on the challenge out of fear or just naturally like goes in and says, hey mom, is there something I can do for you? I'm gonna pull him aside and be like, hey man, that was awesome. Most people don't have that character to care enough about what mom's got going on by themselves. That's huge. Like I'm gonna his natural behaviors, like Clint said, and they're not going to be so natural, but they become natural with the other principles. Double down on that. That's the gold. And the other kids, like, this is something that at first, all kids, when they first start wrestling, are like, they come off the mat and they don't want to learn what they did well and what they can adjust. They're just like pissed if they lose. You know what I mean? They're like, why? Because they just think that means everybody here thinks I'm inadequate, and that bothers them. And so, one of the culture things that I've taught our kids here is I go, hey, look, I'm not saying this because he's my son. I'm saying it because it's right. I want every person here to watch what Slade does when he comes off that mat. He comes off the mat, and it's like, if he won, awesome. I talk about what we did good. And if he loses, awesome. I talk about what we did good. And then I'll be like, hey, on that thing here, the only reason he caught you with that was because of this. And he'd be like, oh, okay. But it's not you're less than, it's what you can do to continue to progress, right? And so now the kids, they come off the mat and instead of throwing temper tantrums, and they might not throw a temper tantrum, but they'll have that disposition. They come over and they're like, all right, what can I adjust? This, and this. Cool. And so that's kind of my big picture thought is, and luckily Clint's always been here to back me up along the way and take a lot of big picture philosophical thoughts into tangible outcomes. But three things are very important to me as a father: 90% love and encouragement, 10% cutting away in discipline, and 10% of lots of challenges before and after. And if I'm like, hey man, jump down to me, and he jumps, that wasn't a behavior that was pitted. That was a behavior of pure faith without being pitted. That's going to get encouraged and blessings three times higher. You see what I mean?
Jay, I would affirm what you said too, because you said 90% is relationship basically. You know that
100. Yep.
you're trying to like your children, and if you don't teach them, if you don't help them to obey, you won't like them, and no one else will, and they won't like themselves either because they'll know innately. So if you can figure out, even as a little kid, when they're just pissing you off, if you can find a way to be happy with them and have fun with them and spend time with and a lot of things we did early on with Sam is every obedience thing I wanted to do, we spent about 30 to 40 minutes practicing. Here, play with this card, not that card. Here, play with this. Don't if you play with this for 2 minutes, that candy. So there's all these things you can do. that aren't even, it doesn't seem they're fun training, but it just teaches you to enjoy your kids. Because at the end of the day, I think most of us would hope that when our kids are older, they do well in life, they're responsible, they do hard things, and they still like being around us. Which, if you talk to many parents, a lot of parents don't have this idea that their children are going to be adults and equals. They're going to be less than always, you know. And so train to that goal.
I'll add a quick thing, like a 30-second thing, but my boys are 6 and 8. One of the things that I've added a little wrinkle in there is, instead of, if they do something that's above and beyond, like unprompted, solid work, I won't tell them, I won't just tell them that like I'm proud of them, but I'll say, hey, on that one, like you should be proud of yourself. That was like a big man move. And
Hey,
you could see them like
I'm gonna.
inflate.
I'll tell you what. Y'all hear me?
Yeah.
All right, James. Your exact point, the only small change I make to that is I say he'd get done doing anything, and I'll go, "Hey, you proud of that?" And he'd be like, "Yeah." I'd be like, "I would be too." Or
Yeah.
he doesn't come to that conclusion, then I'll just say what you say, which is, "Hey, man, you can be proud of that." Right? Because I do agree with you. A man should be proud, not in the biblical word of proud. We don't have a good word for this, but pleased and satisfied with your effort or outcome. Exactly. Exactly. There's one last thing I wanted to tell you guys, thinking on it. Y'all, what do y'all got? Why it's going to take ADD brain 20 minutes to remember?
So I had
You know,
one question was how do you balance this piece of the facing the fear and getting them to do it out of obedience with uh at least, and I could be wrong in my mind frame as a dad, but also wanting them to grow up uh not being afraid to question things.
Yeah. I'm glad you said what you said. It helped me remind me instantly. Somebody, Bill, I think just said, and Clint was talking about this before, but here's the quintessential question for me. If I take exactly what I'm seeing in front of me right now, do I want to hang out with that as a friend when they're older? And if I don't, then I'm making adjustments. And I was very concerned when Slade was little because I definitely said what I'm saying to y'all now. I definitely loved him, but I also held him to a high standard. And I was like, I wonder, am I going to break his spirit? You know what I mean? Like that was kind of my thought. Like, I don't want to be too much. That's not what happens. A person that is not loved, that's one thing. But they know that they're loved. You don't say it, you show it. You interact with them. You're having a fun time with them. You smile. You give them hugs. You show it in your actions. And when you show it to them regularly, when you got to chew their ass, you don't break their spirit. They know that they made a mistake because this is so much different than me being encouraged. Or when a challenge is in front of them, then they know. So, how do I find challenges? I just reevaluate, like we talked about. I don't know what next challenge I'm going to put on my kids are, but as I'm just walking around through the day, something presents itself, and then I just set it up on the spot. Like it doesn't have to be something special or big. It's just, hey, why don't you go do this real quick? Be like, huh? Be like, nah, you got to do it. So just go get it done. Like they're older, you know what I mean? But that's the thing. Challenges will present themselves if you'll reevaluate and just be cognizant that I want to teach this kid to be cool to hang out with, because cool to hang out with has all the principles we're talking about. Like Slade and I hang out like friends, and where I normally have to go with a friend, I got to kind of unpack it and get, like, that's the difference. We're hanging out as friends. and then he says, does, or whatever, and I'm like, hey, you know that I love you? Yeah. You know that I want to see the best interest in you and I want you to be an exceptional man? Yeah. Okay, well, that thought's fucking retarded. All right. And here's why. So if you go on that path, that's what you're going to see. I would encourage you to go do X, Y, Z and be like, all right. But that comes on the back of the previous. Go ahead, Clint.
I was just going to say, I wanted to add another. I don't mean to drag this out, but I do see this as very important. So, what to Josh's point? See, there's two different things going on here a little bit. There's discipline, and there's also challenge, right? And those can be both the same thing. But
Right.
remember this: you remember what I said about cause and effect creatures, right? Kids learn to reason at a much later state in their life than what you think they do,
Yep.
right?
That's
That
right.
they actually understand that. And when you are teaching, when you are disciplining, you need them, you have to have them do what you say to do without question immediately because it's for their safety, right? If I need my kid to jump, he might not know or be able to even comprehend that that building behind him is about to fall down that he was playing on. And I need him to jump to me right fucking now,
Yep.
right? And so part of that deal that you teach them to do that stuff is for their safety, right? I bring this up all the time. Like there's so many parents that chase little Johnny around. You come here, do this. I'm going to count to three, and they run around, run around, around, around. Hey, go to Burrito del Sol on Highway 98 right there in Fort Walton Beach, and little Johnny starts to go acting like a fool, and you say, "Come here, stop," and he runs out in the middle of 98. Little Johnny's dead, right? So there's a very poignant reason for discipline and when they're young and doing what you say when you say to do it, right? Because we're not only training character, we're also keeping these kids alive because as smart as they are, they're dumb as hell when to know when their life's in danger. And you have to watch out for that, right? So always remember that questioning is good, but they get to do that when they're older. When they're younger, they have to obey for certain reasons, right? And a lot of that is safety. So you can start that questioning process after they've obeyed
Right.
and when they're a little bit older, and then you will not kill their questioning spirit. If they have that, they're going to have that. But a lot of times it's too much and it'll get them killed. You
Mm-hmm.
literally, it's life or death. You do this now, or because they don't have the
And
big
suffering.
picture. They just don't know.
You do
So
this or life hurts. Happy face if you obey, sad face if you don't. And you earn the right to why if you will obey. It's the only way I'll ever tell you why we're doing this is if you obey first. Then we'll decide if. Sometimes you just need to trust that I know better because
Yep.
God's going to do that to you for the rest of your life.
And
Rarely
that's
will He tell you why He wants you to do something. He just says do it.
and that's like we talked about last week. That if you delay discipline, you lose patience to do the discipline. So it's like, hey man, come here, and then they're like, you're like, nope.
Mm.
Instantly, it's on. It's on because I'm not counting to three. I'm not wasting my words because I'm only going to lose my patience. And long term, I need you to know that when I say something, it means something
Mm-hmm.
because that's teach you in the long run. But I tell you, listen, son, this is really important. As a 17-year-old son who will be 18 this year, this is important. He needs to know that when I say something, it means something. Not you might should listen to this advice, right? 100%. So we can default as men towards discipline and be like, all right, well, I'm going to go smash my kids, and it's like, no, love them a lot, and then keep smashing them as well, right? It's not one or the other. It is the love and fear of God. It is the love and fear of a father that instills discipline and creates exceptional men and
Proverbs
exceptional.
is Proverbs is clear. You spare the rod, you hate your children. Spare
That's
your
right.
discipline, you hate your children because you're going to be party to their death.
Yep. And let me tell you something on Clint's point. I'm gonna hit you right after this, Tony, to close this out. This is an example that I was giving the other day. As I said, with wives and kids, they often think walking with God is getting in a car, setting a GPS, and then driving to a national monument. Here's how long it'll take. Here's the turn by turn. Everybody on the road is going to follow the rules. I'll pull up to the stop sign. Everybody will do a proper, right away, etc. And I get there. That's not what walking with God's like, and that's not what being a father is like, and that's not reality for life. Walking with God is I am on a mission and a battle, and I have a place I'm going, but the enemy gets a vote. So I'm moving along on a 180 azimuth, and all of a sudden we take contact. If I have to stand here and argue back and forth with a wife or a child as to why we're making an adjustment right now, then we're just going to die in the ambush. So we might have walked 100 meters from the right, and now all of a sudden I'm like, hey, we're going 100 meters back to the left. And they're like, but you said we were going right. It's like, hey, I got it. I understand what you're saying. Let's go right now. Because if we don't react, flank this position, we're not going to get back on the same path, even though we're going to have a slightly different azimuth now, but to the same destination. And I don't want us to like instill that in a, you know, utilitarian dictator like thought process, but you have to know that's true and you have to communicate with your wife. Sometimes when I'm interacting with the kids that doesn't seem like the right answer to you, I'm reacting to contact. The enemy's trying to instill in him a principle that will break him. And to Clint's point, whether it's safety today, not running out in the road, or it's safety to having a detrimental life that won't face, fears and walk with God, they're both safety. It's just when is the car coming? But the car is fucking coming. So I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. What you got, Tony? You're going to close us out and pray us too, bro.
How you doing? So I have a 2.5-year-old and a 4.5-year-old girl. And one of the things that Bill just said kind of struck up some questions for me, just because they're both very strong-willed. They're both pretty brave. It's weird to watch at their age. And I get, hey, don't do that, and I get why from my 4.5-year-old a lot. Why? And it's oftentimes I'm like, because I care, I love you too much. I don't want you to get hurt,
All right.
and I have to explain myself to
Yeah.
a 4.5-year-old, which is just ridiculous. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So
Sorry.
you trained them. What did you train them was the appropriate response?
I mean, just I try to get them just to listen.
Yeah, but what have you trained them is the appropriate response?
Um, I'm unsure on how to answer the question, honestly.
Do you
So
reason with them or do you make them do it?
that's
I
right.
make them do it.
But what
And
have you trained them is an appropriate action when you say do something?
I'm honestly drawing a blank.
That's good. I was hoping so. You've trained them that the appropriate response is to question what you said. And how did you train it? Because when you said A and they said Y, they didn't know that was going to result in a poor outcome
immediately.
immediately. And so the more that
Hmm.
you entertain the terrorism, the more that you're training them that that's okay. Right. And
Okay.
so here's something I do like with kids is like our wrestling kids. And I do this with my kids. I go, hey, go do this. And then if she goes, why? I go, all right, you're not understanding me. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go do this right now. And regardless, you're going to get this discipline for not doing what I said the first time. And if you ask me again, you're going to get 4 times this discipline for not doing it the first time. You're getting disciplined either way. So you decide, do you want to ask me again or do you want to go do it now? And then they go do it. And then I give them the discipline anyways, the one option. And then now they go, well, that was a bad decision. I got disciplined either way, because what most parents do is they go, hey, if you don't do this now, then here's what's going to happen. No, no, no. I'm training 2 separate actions there. One action is I asked you to do this and you didn't do it. You're getting disciplined for that. Now, the second is if you understand that's a problem, if you want to repeat that now as a separate action, then there's going to be a separate discipline for that too. But you're getting disciplined already. And now you're at a next juncture of going, now you understand. Do you want it to be even worse? And so what you're going to teach them And when they get done, you give them discipline one. You go, hey, listen to me. Every time I ask you to do something, you don't do it, you're going to get disciplined. But I'll make you a deal. You go do what I said the first time, and afterwards you can ask me why, and I'll tell you why. But if you don't do what I'm telling you, every single time this is going to happen. You get to choose, not me. You choose whether you get disciplined. I don't choose that. My job is to hold you responsible for what I have to do as a father. So if you want to ask why, after you do what I ask you to do, feel free. But because you didn't this time, I'm not going to tell you why. Next time, we'll see what happens. And then I'm just going to find something within the next hour to tell them to do. Like I'm going to now, I have a challenge. Hey, I need you to go do this. And we're like, what? Oh, shit. Why? We're going straight to 4 this time.
Correct. And
Okay.
if you do that and they ask why and you go through the process, in the next 2 hours, I would ask them to do 27 things that I know they don't want to do. And there would be immediate consequences if they didn't, because you're not teaching, you're training. You don't wait for the opportunity to train. You train every day. You make them do things they don't want to do. And if they ask why, you just crank it up. And you're not mean. You can't yell at them. You can't be upset with them. You're just like, hey, you're choosing A. You choose A, you get A responses. You choose B, you get B responses. Every time, always, first time, no matter what. Which means you have to be freaking super disciplined. And they're little lawyers. Remember, they're little sinners. So they're going to try to out lawyer you. And if you let them early on, you'll never win it back. They have to know when
That's a
they,
great point. That's a great
yep,
point.
Do you remember?
they don't.
Do you
Go
remember
ahead.
last week, Tony? Whenever I said that there's going to be 3 different conversations that we have in life. One is I'm not the authority in the conversation. One is we are equals, and one is I am the authority. I asked my son, hey, you know where the duct tape is? I'm in the authority in that situation. I'm not actually asking him where the duct tape is. I'm telling him, go find the duct tape, right? John and I are having a conversation, and I'm like, hey, man, what do you think the best way to like mount this thing is? Well, we're mutual at that point, right?
Hmm.
And in that case, he's like, we're discussing, we're going back and forth. And then when I'm not in the authority, I'm like, hey, Bill, I've been trying to help this guy with this. What do you think the best answer is? I'm not asking Bill to solve it, I'm asking for advice. And so as they get older, there's a different dynamic for every conversation. But if you don't teach them that when authority is asking them to do something, then they don't get the right to then later be in the position to speak mutually or to ask for genuine advice. Because when you're telling them to do something and they're not doing it, what's happening is you're removing the ability to later actually seek counsel. Because how can they seek counsel when they don't know how to have the different positions of authority? Right? Like if I don't know how to hear shit I don't want to hear, then I can't call Bill and ask him for advice genuinely because I'm not trained to hear shit I don't want to hear. I
Hmm.
won't seek candor, I won't seek feedback. But when I call Bill and he'll tell you, I go, hey, Bill, what do you think for this? I already know what I think. I want to know what you don't like about this idea. So if I don't teach a child to hear shit they don't want to hear, then how do they seek genuine feedback? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Well said.
Yep. So do what I said because I said, and then you can ask me why. Because that's the principle I'm trying to train. I don't have a problem telling my kids why. I do have a problem with my kids just fucking not doing what they're supposed to do because they don't agree with what I said. I don't care if you agree. Go do what I said. You know?
Hmm.
Yep. Yep. No,
Well, thanks for that.
a damn good question, and it's a central question that pretty much all parents have, dude. So it's a great question that's edifying to others.
You live in
I
my
forgot.
house, you obey
Forgot.
my rules, period. Otherwise, go to somebody else's house.
That's it. Tony, pray us out, bro.
Okay, thank you. Um, Lord, I'm here today. I just want to thank you for this group of men. I want to thank you for the tribe. I want to thank you for the clarity given through this group of men and the guidance. I pray that you just watch over us. Let us feel your presence through the weekend and through all next week. Um, and give us the strength to just stay on path with you and the focus to do so. Thank you very much. Love you. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Good stuff, brothers.
Amen.
All right, man. Y'all have a good day.
Good to
Hey,
see you,
guys.
Jay. Good to
Thanks,
see
guys.
everybody. I did record all of it, Jay.
You're the man. Appreciate you, brother.
Amen. See you.
Later.